All right, welcome back. As South Africa celebrates 30 years of democracy, the unresolved issue of land reform, it's looming large. It's getting even larger as we head to the elections. Despite the passage of time, significant strides in land restitution, redistribution and tenure reform have been very elusive. Why is that? Why aren't we getting this right? I'll tell you why it's a concern. Political parties are talking about it all the time, not just these elections, the previous elections as well. Everyone in politics seems to have an answer. The question is, why does nothing ever really get done about land reform, or at least very little gets done? Chief Executive of the Vumelana Advisory Fund, it's Mr. Peter Setou joining us this afternoon. Hello, Peter. Why, 30 years later, this has been such a big focus since 1994, why do we still seem to be on the back foot? Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Gareth. Yeah, I think you spot on land reform or the land question. Depending on where you look, from which angle you look at it, it still remains a very emotional issue for Black South Africans in particular, and for the rest of the population from different angles. I think it is important just to put things into perspective, because whilst there has been a lot of criticism to land reform and progress that has been made by government, I think it is important just to, take a step back and reflect on what has been achieved to date. I mean, just in a nutshell, we know that when you look at land restitution, just around 4 million hectares of land have already been transferred to Black South Africans. And on the land redistribution front, just around 5 million hectares have already been transferred to Black South Africans. So all in all, you are looking at about 9 million hectares that have already been transferred to date. And not really mentioning compensation that has been made to some of the claimants, land claimants. But having said that, the reality is that there's an outcry out there amongst Black South Africans in particular to say, whilst more land has actually been transferred, you actually find that the bulk of these land parcels still remain unproductive or less productive, if you like, So I guess for me, the real issue, one, is that we need to make sure that whilst land acquisition is very much an important issue, equally important is how transferred land is actually utilized. And in that regard, we're actually saying, and we take cognizance of the fact that government cannot do it alone. And this is why you need the participation of various role players and industry participants to really get involved to make sure that land reform is not just an elusive concept among South Africans, but really it benefits all South Africans.
Here's the problem. You have all those industry leaders, you have those involved in the sector, you have those think tanks, you have those business leaders. It all seems to fall over the moment you bring politics into it, because this is becoming a political issue now, and everyone seems to have a better idea than everybody else, don't they?
Well, it is indeed true that different political parties have got different approaches to land reform, and I think that's a topic for another day. But I think it's important to reflect on the fact that I think a lot of progress has been made at the policy front, in terms of ensuring that we've got some of the policies that can actually make sure that land reform is sustainable, So that's that. I think on that front, we need to acknowledge that government has, to a larger extent, really done well in terms of putting in place some of the policies. Yeah. But I think we also need to acknowledge the fact that there have been a number of reports, for example, the high-level panel report, usually referred to as the Motlanthe report, which has really highlighted issues. For example, what are the challenges in land reform? What is it that needs to be done, for example, to make sure that land reform is a challenge? Equally, we've had a panel that was appointed by government to advise cabinet and the president around land reform issue, and that report is there. So essentially, it's not as if we don't know as South Africans what are the challenges. I think the challenge really lies in implementing the policies, one, to ensuring that the identified challenges are actually addressed.
Peter, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Food for thought as we also get ready for the elections. You're going to hear the talk of land over and over again from various political parties as well. And my biggest thanks to Chief Executive of the Vumelana Advisory Fund, Peter Setou, joining us this afternoon. We'll have your 4 o'clock headlines in just a moment.